My mom said the other day that it's not blood that runs through the veins of the Penson family, it's film developer. It all started in 1890 on the western border of Russia, about 300 miles away from Moscow. My great-grandfather was born. He was the beginning of the legacy of photography in my family. Behind me is some of his work. Today, he's known to be a prominent figure in photography and photojournalism of Soviet Russia. I grew up surrounded by the work of Max Penson, my grandfather Myron Penson, my father, and my brother. The career choices of all of the men in my family were hardly coincidental. In my early childhood, the camera was a familiar object. In the early 2000s, digital photography was already the standard, as the art of analog photography became somewhat obsolete to the general public. I didn't question leaving behind film photography, that is, until I knew anything at all about it. 2 summers ago, I picked up a camera that had been sitting on a shelf in my house, collecting dust for about as long as I can remember. I don't know why I picked it up that day, but it happened. I came to my dad holding this camera, and I was met with criticism about why I felt the need to use an old, beat-up camera when I had access to high-megapixel digital cameras with more than ample memory cards. I didn't have an answer to that question, but I sure as hell wasn't going to let a parent talk me out of doing something. That day, I shot my first roll of film. It was 35mm Kodak 400 Tri-X black and white film. I'd love to tell you all that since that day, I was hooked. It took me a while to pick this camera back up again, but I did know that it had something to teach me. Film photography is different from digital for about a million reasons. With a film camera, the photographer has full control over whether they make or break a photo. With a film camera, you manually control aperture, which is in charge of depth of field and determines how much light is let in through the lens. You manually control shutter speed, which determines the amount of time your film is exposed to light, and the type of film you buy determines how sensitive the film is to light. Film speeds typically range from about 100 to 800. With 100 speed film, it would be essentially impractical to shoot in anything other than broad daylight without the use of a tripod and the longest shutter speed. The film itself is composed of multiple layers. There's the plastic film base, adhesive, and emulsion, which is the important stuff. The emulsion is composed of silver halides suspended in gelatin. When the shutter is released, the light will come through the camera and be focused onto the film. This happens for about a fraction of a second. In the areas which are exposed to light, the silver halide will partially convert into silver. This is completing during the developing process, which must be done in complete darkness. What comes from that process is called the negative. It's an inverted version of the photo you took, in which the parts that were exposed to the most light are now the darkest, and the darkest parts of your photo are now translucent. This is important for the printing process in a darkroom. I decided to modernize the process beyond the camera because printing in a darkroom seemed time-consuming beyond practicality. So I invested in a film scanner. Because film photography is dead to large-scale manufacturers, the software of the scanner was outdated and by no means efficient. Throughout my entire process, I spent a collective 22 hours scanning my film. That was fun. As well as hours of anxiously hand-cropping the film into strips of 6 exposures. This guy got like a mouth thing when I'm focused. Yeah, I mean absolutely no offense to my lovely scanner because seeing my photos weeks, maybe months after taking them was like a very striking experience for me. It was like reliving moments that I had forgotten about amidst the clouded thoughts of my future. This is a feeling that I think a lot of people in this room can relate to. The past, year or so of our lives have been all about the future and where we're going and who we're going to become. It's been absolutely inevitable to forget about and disregard beautiful moments that we can only look back on now. I decided a couple months in what I wanted this project to be. The inherently nostalgic qualities of film corresponded directly with my theme. Throughout the past year and a half, I carried this baby everywhere I went, capturing every beautiful moment I knew I would forget about when all I had time to think about was at least a year ahead. Throughout this process, I shot about 100 feet of 35 millimeter film, not including roughly 15 feet of film that came back blank. Let's take a second to talk about how ridiculous that is. I was taking those photos having absolutely no idea I would never see them again. That's the analog equivalent to doing a photo shoot with a lens cap on. The volatility of analog photography is undoubtedly frustrating, but there's something really magical about the meticulous process of it all. Film has a quality that's absolutely irreplicable, which is why all of the photos in my series and the ones that you're going to be seeing today are completely unretouched. What I leave you with today is an excerpt from my photo series, 11:59:59 p.m., symbolizing the last moment before the next day, which has been the essence of my life for the past year or so. I won't be speaking during the slides, so please feel free to conduct your own narratives while viewing. To those of you who are interested in viewing the photo series in its entirety, can visit sarahpenson.com. Making a website was senior project number 2. I have a lot of thank yous. So first off, I want to thank my close friends and my family, especially my mom, for dealing with me throughout this process. I have been the worst person to be around. I must say, putting together this presentation has taken a serious toll on me, and I think everybody here can relate. So just thank you for not killing me, I guess. I want to thank my mentor, Sasha Burdett, for lending me about 60 pounds worth of books about film photography and photography in general, and having hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of discourse about photography with me. He was really the reason why I focused more about the meaning behind all these photos and like how personal it was to me, rather than just aesthetic appeal, which is something I'm very prone to focusing on. I want to thank Mr. Lowenthal for, again, dealing with me. He's been an amazing help, and he's helped me overcome my nerves, and just like being so patient with my scattered workflow. I want to thank Gianni for helping me shoulder my stress through this and doing all of my tech work. She's been absolutely amazing while I've been freaking out. And just taking this up, like taking up this job, and this goes to every person that's done tech, on top of like the senior project that everybody has to work on, is such a selfless thing to do. So thank you so much. I want to thank my sponsor, Leslie from ProLab. I don't know if she's here today, but she's been also a massive help. She's been like just so on call, and whenever I had anything I needed to be done, she was there for me, and she's just been amazing. And I'm really happy how my photos turned out, and it's all because of her and her skills. I want to take a second to just applaud my class, because, as I said, this process has been incredibly hard. And it wasn't until today that I realized that I wasn't the only one going through this amount of stress. You guys all put your entire hearts into your projects, and I just want to say they've all come out amazing. So, very proud of you guys. Oh, I also want to thank okay. I just want to thank everybody that's let me take photos of them. You're the entire reason that this photo series came together. It's only a thing because you were part of my life. So, thank you all. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Caldwell.
Are photographers currently using film? I don't mean because that's an artistic thing to do, but photographers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I say that it's kind of like a dying art, that's really only to like the general public, and it's the fact that I have to pay significantly more money to get my film developed than I would have had to in like the 90s. So yeah, it's definitely more of a niche, but people who do photography, I would have to say all of them have done film before. It's really like, it's all of the basics. You learn them so much easier when you're working with analog photography. So absolutely. Olivia.
Do you have a favorite photo, but if not, is there one photo in particular that struck you and you were able to create sort of narrative and nostalgia that you were talking about that really had a profound impact on your life?
I think this series as a whole, and the series is composed of about 33 sets of photos, so this is really just a fraction of that. The series as a whole had a profound effect on me. And in terms of favorite photo, I really like the last one with the man and his dog. It was taken in Venice. I walked past them in the morning, took a photo, and as I was walking back to my hotel about 6 hours later, I saw the dog just lounging outside the Prada store, which was really cute. So I guess I really like that set. Sage.
Do you prefer taking photos of people that you know or strangers?
They mean such different things to me, because I can make up my own stories with strangers, and everybody can have their own interpretation. I don't have a preference, but I like both of them for sure. You? You.
Were there any artists or filmmakers or anything that inspired you through your work?
I'm inspired by a long list of people. A long list. But that's just in terms of like what art strikes me the most. This photo series, I tried to take as little direct inspiration as I could, because it was so personal to me that I just tried to channel all of it through myself. Lazuli.
How has this project affected your mindset? For instance, waiting for the film to
I don't know if I gained any patience, because whenever I would pick up my film, I would speed back to my house to scan it all. That was definitely the most frustrating part, but also the most rewarding part, because I was so excited to see these photos, since I haven't seen it since I was looking through the viewfinder the moment I took them. Yeah. Henry.
Is there something you feel a film camera offers a photographer that a digital camera doesn't?
A lot of things. A lot of things. You have a lot of control, and you also are entirely susceptible to what the camera wants. At the same time, you have full control and zero control, and it's a very interesting process. I don't know. Yeah, Cole.
Have you developed a preference between color, black and white, and what do you value?
Okay, I've just fallen in love with like Portra 400 film, because the colors look so good. But when I was scanning all of my film, I really regretted not doing more black and white photography, because there was something so special about it. No preference. I loved both of them. I wish I did more black and white.
What was the most frustrating part?
Scanning. And it was also the most rewarding part. So yeah, definitely.
Is that camera old?
Yeah, it's my dad's camera from the 80s. Yeah.
So you've obviously learned so much about photography and this type of photography. Do you feel there's something really seminal or pivotal you've learned about you?
Yeah. I had no idea how little I was living my life throughout this process. I mean, as I mentioned, it's like we've all spent all of this time just focusing on like what we're gonna do. And having these photos and seeing these moments that happened throughout this time was really important to me, because I haven't really exactly had the time to like just live this life and focus on what's happening right now. So that was a huge thing for me in this process, for sure.
Did you say what kind of camera you used?
It's an EOS 1. It's Canon's first, I think it was Canon's first professional grade film camera that they released. Yeah. Yes.
Was it difficult to get film?
What?
Was it difficult to get film?
Actually, no. It was just expensive.
It used to be, I mean, previously you could get film everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, well, now that you can shop online, it's like easy to get anything you want, right? So yeah, it wasn't that hard to get film. But I did drive, you know, like 40 minutes every time I needed a batch developed. So, yeah. Okay. Any last questions? No, looks like we lucked out.